Շատ ուրախ ենք, որ ներկա եք այստեղ եւ ունենք մի շարք հյուրեր, որոնց ներկայությամբ նաև ուրախ ենք։ Դասախոսությունը եւ իմ խոսքերը պետք է լինեն հիմնականում անգլերենով։ Ունենք անմիջական թարգմանություն, եթե կցանկանաք լսել թարգմանությամբ, ուրեմն ձեր աթոռների աջ կողքում կան ընկալուչներ, որ կարող եք օգտագործեք, ուրեմն բարձրացրեք այդ ձեռքի դնելու այո այդ բանը։ First, I want to, before I introduce our distinguished speaker of the symposium, I'd like to say a few words and acknowledge some of my colleagues who for many years have been involved and have been working in the field of alternative energy. It was in early 1990s that Artak Kambarian, where are you, Artak? Artak was a student here, and as a part of his studies, he wrote a report about the status of alternative energy in Armenia. I think it was in 1994 or 1995. And from that time on, the American University of Armenia, I apologize, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Armen Dershkiryakian. I'm the president of the American University of Armenia. So to continue, from that time, through Artak's efforts, the American University of Armenia was involved in various efforts in advancing alternative energy, and particularly solar energy in Armenia. In 1995, Artak was able to put a solar monitoring system on the roof of this building, and he has extensive record of solar power over the months of several years. Later, he was able to get a grant from what is known as, at that time, Intro Copernicus Fund for a desiccant cooling system through which also solar panels were installed on the roof of this building in around 2001. Our small auditorium was cooled with this solar-powered system. Later, he had collaborations with National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL, through Dr. Ken Turian, and the two of them have been instrumental also in teaching a number of courses in our industrial engineering and systems management program. So I want to acknowledge, take advantage of this opportunity to acknowledge Artak, who has been very instrumental in initiating this kind of work and interest in the American University of Armenia. And I must say also that he's been the force behind organizing this symposium. So thank you, Artak. Another of our students, Armen Gharibian. Where are you, Armen? In the back there. Also a student from the Industrial Engineering Systems Management program, has also been instrumental in designing and installing solar panels on our new building, Paramazavdisyan building, and these have been possible, both systems have been possible through support from Turpanjian Foundation. So we are also grateful to Mr. Turpanjian for providing that support. So AUA has had long interest in alternative energy, and that interest continues, and I hope that with the help of our colleagues, and particularly with support of Dr. Peter Gevorkian, our speaker today, that this interest will grow, and our activities will grow, and we'll have a more effective, more comprehensive program in offering alternative energy. This symposium on solar power technology is co-sponsored with the Armenian Engineers and Scientists of America, and I'm very happy that their president, Razmik Arakhanian, is here. Razmik is here, just arrived, so we're very glad that you're also participating, and we're grateful for their support of this. But this would not have been possible without our very distinguished speaker, who is a very well-known specialist, world-renowned specialist in solar energy, alternative energy more generally, and I would like to briefly introduce him and give you his bio. Dr. Kevorkian holds a Bachelor of Science with honors in electrical engineering, a Master's of Science in computer science, and a PhD in electrical engineering. His expertise lies in renewable energy sources such as solar power, fuel cells, and microturbine generation. He has designed more than 250 megawatt of photovoltaic systems for healthcare, aviation, and regional utility companies across the United States. Dr. Kevorkian is an active member of the Canadian and of California Professional Engineers, California Society of Energy Engineers. He's a distinguished visiting professor and lecturer in advanced solar photovoltaic and alternative energy power production, who has conducted numerous seminars and lectures worldwide. Over his career that spans 40 years, or nearly 40 years, he's not that old, Dr. Kevorkian has received numerous honors and awards and contributed numerous technology innovations in solar power, process control, and automation systems. He has a long list of awards. I don't want to take too much of your time by reading every award, but he has been recognized and awarded by the American Institute of Architects on 2007, twice, 2008, 2009. He's been nominated by the University of Waterloo Faculty of Engineering for the Medal of Honor for Engineering Achievement. In 2012 and 2014, he was listed by the Cambridge University Press roster of top scientists and engineering authors. Dr. Kevorkian has taught computer science, automation control, and renewable energy systems engineering. He has published many technical papers for national and international symposiums and has authored several technical books. Several might be an underestimate. Last I counted, there were 10 books at least that he has published. Some of these you will see the cover pictures on that both sides, and these are specifically 8 of these books are on sustainable energy, solar power, and energy distribution systems. These books are used as textbooks in many universities as resource, and I'm sure they will also be very valuable for us. Fortunately, we have a good collection. I don't know if we have every one of them, but we have, through his generosity, we have most of those books in our library. Our library is open to the public, so you can make use of those books when needed. Dr. Kevorkian currently holds a patent for intelligent solar power reader, a high precision solar power energy management and life safety control system, a patent for a solar power system prognostication, and econometric analytical software system, and multiple patents in digital tachometry. He is the president of his own company. He has named Vector Delta Design Group, an electrical engineering and solar power consulting organization located in La Cañada, Flint Ridge area in California. that specializes in industrial, commercial, and residential projects. So it is really indeed our honor and pleasure to have Dr. Kevorkian here, who will present the symposium. But before asking Dr. Kevorkian to come on the stage and start his presentation, I would like to give a few minutes to invite Mr. Hai Karutunian, who is the Deputy Minister of Energy and Natural Resources of Armenia, to say a few words. I must say with pride that Minister Ashot Manukyan, recently appointed, is one of our graduates, so we're very happy about that. Mr. Karutunian, please.
Շնորհակալություն հրավերքի համար, շատ ուրախ եմ, որ Հայաստանը նման միջոցառում է կազմակերպվում եւ շատ ուրախ եմ, որ նման հնարավորություն ունեմ մի քանի խոսքով
the
ներկայացնել.
chance to host this kind of event, and I am happy to have a chance to briefly present what we're doing in this field. I want to let you know that the renewable solar power, I don't like to call it alternative energy, which presumes that we have it, but we don't have now. We need to see it in renewable energy in Armenia. There's still no alternative in Armenia. There will be the time for us to understand this. We see solar power development in three-stage development. The first one through small producers up to 150 kilowatt. This development should be seen in the process of development and application in our routine life, in our houses and businesses and the buildings. This year we've had very interesting legislative initiative sent to National Assembly to exempt them from all taxes, to ensure flows, and now we can surely say that this process started to work. There will be a small contract made by the Regulatory Commission, and everyone can have this opportunity to connect to the network, to the grid, and sell this solar energy to the grid. I understand that some people here are not that happy with our achievements, but I can surely say that was the maximum we could achieve for now. But if we see the real problem, we'll always have to make changes in any procedure and law. We prepare some changes in the law on energy by envisaging serious reforms, market commercialization, regional trade development, and under these reforms we also consider this part. The second thing we concluded recently as a result of long negotiations, we decided for up to 1 megawatt plants to define tariff. This is going to be the same as the wind tariff, meaning plus VAT. Why up to 1 megawatt? Because we understand that we have strong solar resource, unfinite resource. Even with this tariff, which we consider as marginal in terms of profitability, economic profitability, it's barely. Some people think that this should be built, but the prices go down. So in the coming year, this will be quite competitive tariff. But we defined it like that for up to 1 megawatt. because this is quite an expensive energy. It's about 24-25 drams per kilowatt hour in our country, so that's the cost. So you understand that 51 dram of VAT included electricity is not competitive. So why we need to be responsible on that. And the third level of development is building bigger plants based on bids. The first bid is planned for the end of this year, next year in the beginning, for 50 megawatts approximately, and this 50 megawatt plant feasibility study and all the documentation related are prepared. The first one will be located in Masrik, and the tender will be quite clear. Who would suggest cheaper, lower tariff? The state has well prepared for this bid. We will solve all the land-related issues, EIA issues, licensing issues, and also we will have some accounts, financial, to provide, and the investor will be able to understand their capacities and define the tariff. We are hopeful about this bid. The last bid winner offered 2.9 cent tariff. Then we opened the Excel and used the calculator, wanted to understand how it was possible to build such a plant with such a low tariff. I failed to understand, but it's already a pattern. There was also 3.1 cent, 3.3 cents. It's not like it's quite big, the difference between the lowest and the second. But it's the delta is about 0.3 cents. And similar conditions to other countries we are trying to offer to our bidders. It was up to 800 megawatts, so we can't do it immediately due to a number of problems, and also with the threat that we won't be able to get this kind of low tariff. At the same time, we should also mention that apart from these technologies, we are interested in developing solar water heaters technology. Mr. Hamaz Aspan is here. Already tested all the technologies in my house. I use the solar panels and water heaters in different programs. The pilot is planned for Tavush Mars. We have facilities for households there, and they're actively used there if they already start. And solar water heaters and solar patrons in greenhouse facilities. That was briefly what I wanted to say. I am thankful for organizing such a serious symposium. Having such serious scientific potential is a need for sector development. We first want to create the market, the required field for developing these technologies. Once we have this in place, we start developing our local manufacturers for them to be able to take their adequate place in the market and serve the public. The scientific potential is not completely our government responsibility. That's why I talk more about market, but we are committed to continue with all support. Thank you for your attention.
Տիկնայք եւ պարոնայք,
Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to invite Director of Renewable Energy Sources, Ms. Tamara Babaya. Please turn off your cell phones or put on. First, I welcome you. I am very happy to see many famous known faces, which means that the interest towards solar energy is gradually growing. Mr. Harutyunyan said all I wanted to say, but I just want to add that all the headache is going to be undertaken by the foundation, the tenders, etc., and our specialists are here in this auditorium. I think that we'll keep in touch, and if you're prepared to participate in this contract as part of the contract, I should say that it's not an innovation for Armenia. We started in 2008 to study the field to see how feasible it was, or to select the tool for Armenian application and a possibility to get a competitive advantage towards the others. We had very serious potential during the Soviet times, even scientific, engineering, professional potential, but unfortunately the gap which popped up as a result of energy crisis, and the energy specialist engineers went to management field, administrative field, and economic sector. So we have to teach our children. So we fail to become these scientific potentials. Probably we need to use this for local, the Armenian scientific capital and the international scientific potential, which continue to develop since they haven't had that objective difficulties we had in Armenia, and learn and transfer to create this strong generation of specialists, of scientists and engineers in Armenia. And I hope that we'll have something to tell to the rest of the world. This is not going to be building of 3 solar plants or some more megawatts more. We, in this auditorium, first of all, we should think for ourselves that even 1 megawatt plant, if we have it in Armenia, the experience of this 1 megawatt, the practical experience, would provide a possibility to our young scientists to work with our senior colleagues and scientists to accomplish and say a new word in this technology. Mr. Harutyunyan mentioned the cheap tariff factors. Of course, it's thanks to the expansion of the output. Mr. Gevorkyan, I thank you for this initiative because we always talk about this by signifying the factor, but sometimes we think that probably it's still immature to have such a event or make transfer of knowledge, and there were many people who were skeptical, but I think that I feel obliged to be more consistent, to be involved in scientific research experience and in awareness raising. Of course, we have, on behalf of the foundation, there are also plans to exchange information with Armenian engineers and scientists of America by involving the investors and contractors to provide opportunity to all the Armenians in the world, and not only Armenians, anyone who are interested in joining around this idea. I don't want to take much of your patience. I just wish event, and I want that this symposium is productive to support the development of this sector in Armenia. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I will briefly talk about the context of this symposium. And the meaning is, first of all, training, didactical. Apart from that, I wanted to mention about one circumstance that I frequently focus and stress, that we all know that there in Armenia we have an issue of energy, power sector independence. And this is one of the means of our independence. But in reality, we have shortage, scarcity of resources. But in my opinion, and not only my, and Dr. Peter Gevorkyan shares this opinion, that for the development of Armenia as economy, the solar power with its different directions, scientific niches, is very well fit to Armenia's fact that we always strive to put focus on science, and it's challenging and perspective for the country. And there is huge potential in the rest of the world on this sector, and this is an opportunity for us to develop it in the country for the coming 5 or 10 years. That's why this symposium and the focus on this particular aspect by Peter Gevorkyan is of particular importance. I want to thank our speakers and supporters. I already mentioned Armenian Engineers and Scientists of America, AWS Engineering Department, and Hakopian Center for the Environment. Apart from that, GIZ made investment to this too, and our good partner Stigen company. Also, a couple of words about our organizational matters, logistics. The most important thing is lunch, the lunch break, if needed. We have 4 different points for breaks. It's in the venue's cafeteria. I think that students are coming. But apart from that, we have Green Bean Cafe. You have the directions on your map. Close. There are also 2 outdoor cafes close to the entrance, so you'll be able to have your lunch there. With that, I'll be happy to move the floor to Dr. Peter Gevorkyan for his first presentation, and let us start the first session of our
Բարև ձեզ։ Նախ եւ առաջ
First of all,
խորին շնորհակալ
I deeply thank Dr. Yurelian Haik and Tamara and Dr. Hambaryan. And in particular, I wanted to mention that Armenian Engineers and Scientists of America contribution. We have our dear friend Razmi among us. Dr. Kuragyan introduced him to you. He said that the members who are not here, Mr. Der Martirosyan made great effort to make this possible, this symposium. First of all, I wanted to ask you to be active. My Armenian is not that fluent, and the lectures I'm going to deliver, there will be some special terminology. I speak French, Spanish, and English. They don't exist in these languages, so I'm forced to deliver these lectures in English to provide explanations. Եվ հուսով եմ, որ դուք հասկանում եք անգլերեն, եթե խնդիրներ ունեք լեզվի հետ կապված,
Provide you with whatever answers you need and so forth. First and foremost, let me give you the genesis as to how this symposium happened. Incidentally, this symposium is going to last 3 days. The main objective of the symposium is really introduction of what we call renewable energy, and more specifically solar power generation systems, to the Armenian engineers, scientists, and academia. What your concept of is known as solar power, I'm sure by the end of the 3 days will be completely revised, changed, because solar power technology, even though it has a legacy of 60 years, but it is perhaps most misunderstood technologies ever. I have spent, well, I graduated about 40 years ago and so forth. During our university studies and so forth, we had absolutely no mention or even idea about what's a solar power system. Solar power system started germinating about 25 years ago, and yet its inception took place in 1956 in Bell Laboratories as a result of the discovery of the transistor or the PN junction. Essentially, in 1956, this discovery was looked at kind of very lightly, but soon it was discovered that through use of transistors, it was possible to really develop a set of computers and so forth that would really operate at exceedingly high speeds and so forth. But the offshoot of solar power discovery, so to speak, in fact, transistor discovery, happened that it changed the world completely. Can you imagine today, if you don't have laptop computers or cell phones or television, the way it operates today, your life would have been completely different if the discovery of transistor did not happen. The offshoot of transistor development, I will go into details, is really very significant. And essentially what I'd like to do is, during these 3 days of discussions, knowing that some of the participants in this lecture or symposium are not really physicists, electrical engineers, or technologists. There are some architects, there are some educators and so forth. So in order to really convey the significance of what solar power technologies and what its importance is, I have to go through the basics of, shall we say, energy, which are really basic physics. I have to touch with theoretical physics. Please don't get scared if you are not familiar with it. And we'll talk about really fundamentals as to how and how this technology that we call solar power generation came about. Not understanding the principles and fundamentals, it will be just an overview. I want to make sure that everyone who has the patience to tolerate some of the nuances, you would, at the end of the 3-day symposium, will have a tremendous appreciation, and hopefully what you understand, the message will be promulgated through either academia, technology, and so forth. So anyway, just a little background as to what I have done in the past 25 years, what my background is. Essentially, I was born in Iran, in Tehran. My parents were from Russia, Kharkiv. I speak Russian and several other languages. Upon finishing my high school, I went to Canada. I did all my studies in Canada. As Dr. Gurarian mentioned, I have 2 master's degrees and a PhD degree in electrical electronics engineering. What is important is that when I did my master's degree, I was one of the first graduates in computer sciences. At that time, we were working with, would you believe it or not, with 4-bit computers, 8-bit computers, and it was all machine language. Then the university I went, University of Waterloo, was one of the originators of Fortran and so forth. So it's one of the best universities in the world. But at that time, what was happening when we graduated, we thought, we're on the top of the world. We know technology, we know computers and so forth. Today I consider myself totally illiterate, even though I do a lot of fundamental research development which involves hardware, software, firmware, and so forth. But I consider myself really an old-timer. What we're talking about, the solar power generation, significance of it is so immense, yet so complex, that I believe it would be an understatement to say that the future of humankind totally depends on energy. Can you imagine if there was no energy, what would happen? We would not even think of going back to the dark ages. But nonetheless, I would be making an effort to really inculcate in you the significance of what solar power system is. You must have some ideas what it is, and there's a lot of talk about really promoting solar power technologies in Armenia and so forth. And then there will be a lot of questions as to why Armenia? The electricity is so inexpensive here at the moment. Why are we going to go through the hardship and expenditure of really setting up fundamental infrastructure for supposedly solar power energy generation? Those things would be very, very clear. But I would like to, again, ask your patience, because I'm going to go through steps to cover not only just the fundamentals of solar power technology, but what we'll do is we will really cover in these 3 days a number of segments associated with the solar power technology, which does not include just the physical constructs, system design, construction, but we will also go through advanced technologies that are taking place right now. As a research engineer, I have numerous inventions and so forth. Some of them are really at the what is called disruptive level or the cutting edge. I would like to really spend some time also explaining those details, and eventually we'll cover both the most important issues associated with economics of what it is that we're talking about, because solar power system, even though it's been commercialized for the past 20, 25 years, it's still a very expensive method of generating solar power. However, there is a crossover between what is cost and what is really price. And so essentially, with your permission, we'll start with 2 screens. Even though they're the same PowerPoint presentation, one of them is a text. Don't pay attention to the text. It is just a reminder for me. And then we'll make a reference more or less as much as possible to the verbal presentation, also the graphics, associated graphics. So I would like to ask our audiovisual technicians to really start the PowerPoint presentations. Incidentally, the symposium has been organized in such a fashion that today, this morning, we'll be covering the fundamentals of the physics associated with solar power system. We'll start with definitions of what I don't want to really go into sophisticated issues associated with thermodynamics, but we'll cover the thermodynamics. We'll make a description of what is an entropy, sources of energy, types of energies. Then we'll go into issues associated with natural resources, importance of really sequestration and misuse of natural resources. And then we'll go on emphasizing what is the fundamental technologies of solar power system, because there are many of them, and there's a tremendous confusion or misunderstanding as to types of solar power technologies. Then we will follow with essentially description. I'll show you some slides and so forth as to how various types of technologies, solar power technologies, are manufactured, how they're deployed, and then we'll move on to really pragmatics of how the fundamental solar power system constructs are made. We'll show you some basic schematics. Once you have a fundamental understanding of, shall we say, the principles of solar power technology, we will then in the afternoon concentrate on something called building integrated solar power system. Today in Armenia, really the solar power technology installation deployment is truly at its neophytic or embryonic stage. There are no big solar power systems yet. There is all sorts of indications that Armenia is going to move towards solar power generation at a larger scale. Yet before Armenia makes a move, it would be very, very important to understand the significance of the solar power technology, because quite frankly, it's a very complex technology. So the solar power technologies, we should go on day 1. Day 1 Iran գնացեք, հոգտվեք, ուրեմն առաջինից սկսեք։ Այո։ Այս մեկն է, չէ, հառաչ է, այս մեկը չէ, կարևոր չի, այս մեկը հետո կնենք։ Essentially, what you have seen, there's a talk and so forth, maybe a few installations. There's maybe a 12, 13 kilowatt installation at the university. Installation at University AUA, which was really initiated, as Dr. Gregorian said, 10 years ago. It's a system that's been operating, and I have enormous respect for Dr. Hambarian for taking the lead 20 years ago, where even in the United States, I started 25 years ago designing these things. And quite frankly, I'll give you a little background as to how I started, because my really education and experience has been through Canada, heavy power, transmission and control systems. I was also involved with the design of the security system for the Canadian nuclear reactor, Canada reactor. So I had all sorts of exposures to technologies, yet 20, 25 years ago, people even didn't know what solar power was, yet Dr. Hambarian, with his enormous, how could I say, enthusiasm and so forth, he told me that they fabricated the first solar power modules and they installed it on the roof of AUA, and it's still operating. So essentially, let me just tell you something. My really methodology of when I lecture at universities and so forth, or I make symposiums, is to really make it as informal as possible. I'd like to really have a dialogue and so forth, and I would like to suggest that take notes if there are a few things that you do not understand. Maybe there are some terminologies in English and so forth. Maybe I'll be able to during the breaks and so forth, give you as much information as possible. But my main objective at the end of the lecture, I'll tell you what it is. I'm really committed to make sure that if Armenia decides to really take the path of environmental conservation and renewable energy generations, I'll be more than glad to be of assistance. A little background, as I was discussing. I did all my studies in Canada, two master's degree at the University of Waterloo, and I did my doctorate degree in a French university, Université École Polytechnique de Montréal. I do speak French fluently. So essentially, a number of years in Canada, I was invited to United States for a research purpose. Then ended up living in the United States for the past maybe 35 years. Incidentally, my background is power generation, distribution, power control. I worked on dams and so forth. But essentially, my professional experience for maybe 15, 20 years after my arrival was in aerospace, military, and research. So as a research scientist, I was involved in a number of many military installations. I was head of the Magnavox laboratories, worked on the very first GPS systems that you have in your cell phone. I was leading the group at Magnavox and so forth. So essentially, having been exposed to complexities of high technologies, about 20 years ago, I was involved in design and development of a habitat. And the issue was, how could you really start designing a habitat that would be energy efficient and so forth. At that time, energy efficiency was of little concern because the electrical cost was so inexpensive. Everything was being generated by coal. Nobody was talking about pollution, environmental, and so forth, except in Canada. There were measures that were taken to make sure that carbon dioxide and pollution was reduced. But in the United States, we had cars that were 8 cylinders and you're driving and making all sorts of noises and so forth. Nobody cared about environmental pollution or energy. And little by little, when we really started feeling the really impact of environmental pollution, I remember first time when I was invited to the United States for a symposium. The plane landed from Montreal, which was absolutely like Yerevan, clean, beautiful, wonderful, sunny. And we're coming over Los Angeles and I see an iodine cloud. When we landed, I couldn't breathe, and I was dumbstruck what the hell is going on? And finally, I found out that there were so many cars and the pollution was so bad that I was wondering how could people live in this kind of environment. But gradually, awareness, persistence, especially scientists and so forth, they started really creating all sorts of noise and so forth. So thanks God, in the past maybe 15, 20 years, there has been a tremendous awareness. It's very, very important for Armenia to realize that environmental pollution abatement and so forth is very critical. Armenia is one of the cleanest countries in the world. I traveled across the world. I spent years in India, in China, in Pakistan, and you name it. I find Armenia has perhaps one of the cleanest environments ever, and I hope that promotion of solar power technology, renewable energy generation would be of prime importance for the country to keep this beautiful land as pristine as it is now. Now, 20 years ago, I was involved with the habitat design, and one of my projects was the general contractor told me, Dr. Gevorkyan, we have to put a solar power system in an Indian land. As you know, California is spotted with Indian, native Indians and so forth. So it happened that there was a school. They needed electricity, and the closest energy, shall we say, lines that were available, they were like 7-8 miles far. So to put essentially lines, transmission lines was multi-million-dollar effort, and they said Southern Californians would be paying the bill and so forth, etc. There's got to be a solar power design. So anyway, I ended up with a specification, nothing else. I tried to find out what is this technology. I could not find a single book ever. Called some of my colleagues, professors and so forth. They had zero idea what was going on. So anyway, I got a specification, a Hungarian-made photovoltaic panel, which was 4% efficient. I figured it out, I looked at it, I said, not much. So anyway, it's a battery that operates with sun. So anyway, whatever it was, I put the system together. We designed a 250 kilowatt system. DC to AC conversion apparatus, which we call, we'll go into depth. Inverters did not exist at that time. I was very familiar with what they call uninterrupted power supply system, which is a battery-backed system that transforms stored energy into electrical energy. So I called one of the companies. They said, yeah, we're working on a solar power technology. The name of the company was Centronics. We worked together, and the very first manufactured solar power inverters, I used them. In the middle of a desert close to Mojave, we had zero knowledge of how to install solar power modules. So we used old telephone poles, some railings, and we put this thing together and just wired it. And the day the whole thing was connected together, I became a very religious person. I was hoping that it wouldn't blow up on my face. Unfortunately, we threw the whole thing lighted. There was a lot of rejoicing and so forth. Essentially, that system, 200 kilowatt, today produces 47 kilowatts, which is not too bad. It was the lousiest system I've ever done. Essentially, from there on, I started working on, I became so-called one-eyed amongst the blind. I started doing commercial systems and so forth. And by almost 2000, year 2000, there was such an overwhelming demand for solar power design and so forth that I literally set aside my power engineering, design, consultation, and so forth aside. I started concentrating on solar power system. Ever since 1995 till recently, I have designed some of the largest solar power systems in the United States. I'm an international consultant with China to India and so forth. I'm telling you these things is because these are very prerequisite discussions, very much related to what the symposium is going to be. Because solar power system, most people look at it and they say, you know, these are panels, you connect them together, it produces power, hurrah, done. Solar power system is perhaps one of the most complex, most convoluted solar power technologies when it becomes large. At megawatt, half a megawatt level, their complexities exceed nuclear power stations. In fact, I worked on them. I designed control systems for them. I'm very much aware. And so essentially, when you go into the depths of it, as we will, you will really gradually learn that just connecting these things together, it will produce power, but you wouldn't know why they produce and why they work or they don't work. So essentially, let me start with the fundamentals of energy. I'm sure I looked at the audience. It looks like most of you are most likely have a great familiarity with most likely sciences and so forth. So the first law of universe called first law of thermodynamics, it says energy cannot be generated or destroyed. And the second law says essentially it cannot be destroyed, but essentially it does transform from one form to the other. Associated with those laws, since it says energy cannot be created or destroyed, but there's a law of entropy which says anytime you have an energy which is at higher state, its tendency is to go to a lower state. In other words, all energies of the universe, from the day the Big Bang occurred till today, they're on decline. So anything that you see requires energy. Life requires energy. Without energy, life cannot exist. And if energy is used, it is declined. In other words, if you really want to think of anything that you see here, it's not made in nature. Nature doesn't produce computers or, shall we say, seeds and so forth. So anything that you produce requires energy. The energy, most of the energy on Earth, either they're sequestered, like minerals, like coal, like, shall we say, tar or crude oil and so forth. And there are also, aside from the universal sequestered energies, there's plenty full of energy that comes from the sun that really in turn creates energy. Like the clouds generate rain, you have streams of water, there's the ocean, there are tides. All of these things happen because of the sun. If there wasn't sun, there would not be absolutely no life. And since the sun is essentially, formally, it's a hydrogen furnace, it really generates, it's a hydrogen nuclear kernel that really fuses hydrogen and produces helium, and in the process it generates a lot of energy that emanates as solar rays. I don't want to go into details of it. I just want to tell you that even the sun is dying. What is very important is the term entropy means capability of doing less work. Without entropy, without energy consumption, without energy debt, there would not be any life. Now, what relates to Earth is that millions, over the past 4.5 billion years since the formation of the Earth that we know, the Earth has gone through many cycles. There has been a period of time when the entire Earth was completely hot. The whole thing was surrounded by methane gas, and then it went to what we call Jurassic period, where there were lots of vegetations and, as you know, dinosaurs and so forth. The whole thing went through really a cycle of freezing process, total life, death, and then sequestration of hydrocarbons and so forth, that today has given us some of the hydrocarbon fuel resources that we have. Ever since World War II, in fact, up to the 14th, 15th century, people even didn't know that how they could really harness the sequestered hydrocarbons to generate heat. In 15th century, there was a rumor in Scotland that there was a church that they were giving away this black rock as during the service for people, and the rock was burning. That was the first discovery of coal, rock coal as they call it. So essentially from then on, the whole world changed in the sense that burning coal gave rise to metallurgy and so forth, steam engine, etc. I don't want to go through the whole thing, but very essentially, since 1700s, there was a major change in human life because of really evolution of automation due to steam engine. Steam engine all of a sudden changed the entire world. It shrank the world. In the olden days, to travel, let's say, from here to anywhere, let's say Stepanakert would have taken you several months. Today, we are capable of flying across the Atlantic in 4 hours. So discovery of, shall we say, energy production by use of sequestered energy has changed human life. It has improved it incredibly. It has affected human life, because the normal human life in the 15th, 16th century was like 42 years old. Then today we're talking about, we're nearing 85, 86 years old as the median life. Why am I talking about these things? And I'm supposed to be talking about solar. Believe me, it's all related. At the end, we will find that solar power plays a major role in the formation, sustenance, and survival of humankind. So essentially, if you see that I'm going on tangent, bear with me, because essentially all the dots will be connected when we go into the essentials of the technology. But finally, the use of energy has created elevation of human life, elevation of technologies and so forth. So today, if you didn't have advanced energy methods, this hall would not exist and so forth. So essentially, let me skip this. If you look at the energies that are available today that can be used to promote, let's say, advancement, amongst all energies available, electrical energy is the most important, because this is type of an energy that you could sequester, you could generate, you could transmit. There are energies like tidal energies. There are energies like chemical energies. There are many types of energies. There's a heat energy and so forth, but the only viable energy that is used to promote industrial development is electrical energy. It can't be generated, it can be transmitted, and so forth. So essentially, let's look at what is happening today, not necessarily in Armenia, but across the world. Take Armenia. Armenia is a landlocked island. All energy production in Armenia is not owned by Armenians, true or not. It's all from Russia and so forth. We really do not have the energy resources to really create our own energy. Why? Because we're dependent on gas or, let's say, crude oil, and most electricity generated and distributed in Armenia is held by foreign interests. Nothing wrong with that, except that Armenia has tremendous resources, solar resources. One thing that if you're a religious person, you believe in divinity and so forth, nature has given the entire mankind an unlimited energy, solar energy. Solar energy, you may perceive, if you're not a physicist and so, you may perceive, okay, it makes it warm and so forth, fantastic. You could dry goods and so forth, but essentially solar energy is perhaps one of the most powerful, most potential source of energy of all kinds. You may think about wind, it's because of sun. You may think of waves, oceanic currents, it's because of the sun. You may think of any type of energy, it's due to solar rays. So essentially, when we're talking about solar power technology, it would be one means of really harvesting solar power rays. That is the fundamental precept and foundations of this discussion. Let me kind of skip through this and go to a discussion as to what are we talking about sequestered global energy. Earth is what is, from thermodynamics point of view, it's called a closed system. Because the energy that we use, aside from sun, it's really circled and it's completely isolated. In other words, if you use the resources that we have, and once they're expired, there's no more. Today, if you really look at the human population growth, and you look at the resources available to humankind, natural resources, they're very limited. In fact, in the past maybe 25, 30 years, energy costs have gone up. Why? Because reports say, for example, Saudi Arabia has so many years of energy, Iran has it, they're discovering new energy sources and so forth. But no matter what, if you look at human population growth, today we're approximately close to 7.2 billion. By 2050 would be close to 10 billion. So can you imagine, and it's not a society that is based on the old precepts of growth. Today, kids, they wake up, they see a computer. Everybody has a computer. Everybody has a car. Nobody drives a bicycle in Armenia. So essentially, what you see, all this energy comes from somewhere, and that is essentially from hydrocarbon. When you use hydrocarbon, essentially, let's say a coal. When you burn a coal, it really chemical reaction with the oxygen creates a CO2. CO2 as a gas, when it's cold, it settles down. It's heavier than air. But when it's headed up, it really goes up. It forms some sort of a balloon around the Earth. And what happens is when solar rays, they come and they hit the surface of the Earth, they bounce back. But when you have this global, shall we say, what they call inversion layer, the rays don't go out of stratosphere, they come back. So what happens, the temperature of the earth and the oceans go up. It has a significant effect on the human life. Oceans have changed over the past 100 years. Their temperature have gone up. The aquatic life has changed. The atmospheric conditions have changed. And if really humankind, they continue use of carbon dioxide-based sources, Earth's lifespan is predicted to be not more than 400 to 500 years, because of the fact that when you really heat the earth, what happens is moisture is sucked out of the earth. Plants change. Essentially, plants, when they don't have moisture, they cannot absorb nutrition. There has been significant life transformation on earth. When oceans heat up, fish die, there are planktons that grow, so essentially the aquatic life changes, and then absorption of carbon dioxide and so forth in the ocean gets saturated, so the earth becomes hotter and hotter and hotter. The only means to really avoid that is to get away from hydrocarbon energy generation. Today, you're not concerned whether these lights that we have here, they create pollution. They do. Why? Because somewhere there's a hydroelectric station that uses a natural gas. When I'm passing by Harazan, I'm not saying, okay, my God, they're generating power. I'm saying how much carbon dioxide they're generating, and how is this affecting the rest of the world? You know, you cannot avoid being a scientist and not looking at the issues associated with impact of solar power, importance of solar power technology. So let me go to the core. What is it? In 10 minutes maybe we will have a break. Let me, what is happening? This is not working. Well, it's not working. But anyway, so essentially, the issue is the following. Armenia really, as I said, has very little independence in terms of energy. It has some strips and so forth. But in general, Armenia, last year when I was invited by United Nations and Artec and USAID to be a keynote speaker in some of the symposiums that we had, I met Tamara Babayan and Haik. Essentially, I met with Tamara Babayan, Haik, and so forth. I also met with AUA. I had absolutely no idea that I would be involved in giving a symposium or something like that. But I went to, I worked with Tamara's group and so forth. There was an opportunity to go to Savannah Leach because they were thinking of putting some solar power technologies there and so forth. They asked me if I could assist them and so forth. So I did go around Savannah Lake, and I was amazed. The clarity of the sun, the unbelievable solar irradiance that exists at that elevation. I have worked in many, many countries. Even though my resume says I have designed 250 megawatts, it's close to a gigawatt, I would say, because in the past year I've been working with a 400 megawatt system in Shaanxi province, 200 megawatt systems in Iowa, and I've started another big project in in Egypt. But in any case, I have traveled through many, many countries. I have never seen such a magnificent, what they call solar platform as Armenia. Elevation, as we'll discuss, plays a very major role, because the higher you are, the less what they call air mass you have, the more solar rays you have, so you really could produce significant amount of energy. I could produce more energy with a single panel around Savannah Lake that I could produce in California. And the difference is big. So essentially, that's one of the things that I thought maybe it would be worthwhile to really see if Armenia could financially have the means to really promote deployment of solar power technology. Essentially, what is very, very important is that from a geophysical point of view, Armenia is really endowed with two very important things. Number one, the solar rays. We're calling ourselves Armenia. If you really know the roots of it, Ar means sun, Menu means land, Armenia means the sun's land. It's very appropriate to say that Armenia is truly, from mythological point of view and so forth, is truly a wonderful location for really harvesting solar rays. Now, let me go through. So essentially, the bottom line is that no matter how unconcerned you are today about electricity, the only concern today for electricity that you have is, yeah, you're paying something like equivalent to 9 or 10 cents per kilowatt of energy in Armenia. Comparatively speaking, it's very high for the level of income that this country has. But I'll guarantee you something. In the United States, I'm consultant to some of the largest energy producing companies in the United States, like Chevron, Exxon, Constellation Power, and so forth. I've trained most of their people and so forth. The fact is that in the United States, energy costs, electrical energy costs, grows up by 12.7% in California. In Hawaii, 1 kilowatt of energy is 42 cents. In Germany, it's about 50 euro cents. And that's why in places where the energy cost is very, very high, deployment of solar power technology, even though compared to regular solar energy, electrical energy production, may be a little high. It's just a perception. But eventually, like Germany doesn't have any resources and they don't want to burn coal, they're shutting down their nuclear power stations. So for them, it has become very beneficial to really install solar power technology. An advanced country has managed in the past 15 to 20 years to have 35% of their energy production from sun. What is very, very important to consider is that solar energy is very compatible with human life, because the human activity starts early in the morning, let's say 6 o'clock, and kind of dwindles down around 6, 7 o'clock. In wintertime, in summertime, may go till 8 o'clock. What happens is that's the time when sun shines strongly. So essentially, energy produced by sun during those hours is really going like a bell curve and producing sufficient energy that compensates or counteracts the use of grid power. So that means that you burn less coal, you burn less gas, natural gas, and so it's totally, how could I say, mitigating issues of carbon dioxide production and so forth. Besides, some people may not be aware, what are the implications of using coal, for example? If you're using coal, you just cannot take the coal and put it in a thermal furnace and so forth, generate steam drive generators. The issue is when you really take the coal, you have to pulverize it, wash it, and associated with it, there are tons of carcinogens like mercury, chromium, and so forth, which get leached into the ground. They're put in the rivers, and essentially they pollute the waters. And when you put mercury or chromium, it's forever and ever and ever. So essentially today, you cannot find a unpolluted water, even in Yerevan, even at the Savannah Lake, that does not have carcinogens in it. Could be very little in parts per million, but in the United States, it's very, very difficult to really drink any water from any lake because we have already polluted the lakes. So essentially, what I would like to do, I'd like to make sure that as citizens of this country, you're not limited to this country, you're citizens, global citizens. Anything that happens in China or Timbuktu affects Armenia. And so essentially, I'd like to really tell everyone, if you have any concerns, you have to really think large, that solar power technology is one of the best ways of really maintaining sanity of the globe and continuation of the mankind. Let's stop for 5-10 minutes, then we'll go into the actual. These are just verbalizations of what I had. So anyway, maybe we could go on the second part.
Yeah. So let's have 7 minutes of break, and there are certain refreshments out there in the hallway, and we will come back very soon. Okay, thank you.